All right, come on in, everyone. Welcome to tonight's technology call. This is where we get to hear Steve Scott, the founder of Neumi, go over the hydrostat molecular encapsulation technology, an amazing technology that reduces the particle sizes so small that it goes right into the cell sublingually through the bloodstream. So we're pretty excited about that technology, and you have about 30 seconds really to reach out. If you got someone that's kind of you've been chatting with and you may have invited them to tonight's call and they're not quite here yet, just give them a little shout, a little quick reminder. So let me get that countdown timer started just about now. Hold on one second. All right. Once again, tonight's presentation is in English. And so for our non-English speaking Numi Nation, we do have captions enabled, but also take a listen to this recording.
Por favor, vaya a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Zoom o YouTube y haga clic en subtítulos para leer en español.
Kérlek, menjünk képernyő aljára, a Zoomon vagy a YouTube-on, a Closed Caption részre, és ott el tudod olvasni magyarul a feliratot.
Silakan klik di layar bawah pada Zoom atau YouTube dan klik caption untuk membaca dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Pour les sous-titres en français, veuillez cliquer au bas de votre écran Zoom ou YouTube sur CC ou Closed Captions.
Zoom または YouTube の画面の下部に移動し、字幕をクリックして日本語で読んでください。
请到屏幕底部點閱隱藏字幕以閱讀中文。
Παρακαλώ πηγαίνετε στο κάτω μέρος της οθόνης, στο Zoom ή στο YouTube και κάντε κλικ στους υπόλοιπους για να τα διαβάσετε στα ελληνικά.
請到屏幕底部點擊隱藏字幕以閱讀中文.
אנא עברו לתחתית המסך בזום וביוטיוב ולחצו על תרגום לכתוביות בעברית.
Proszę zejść na dół ekranu na Zoomie lub YouTubie i kliknąć napisy, żeby przeczytać po polsku.
So I don't really know what all they said, but I know it has something to do with captions are enabled in their language. Pretty amazing stuff, this technology. So look, hey, comment in the chat where you're tuning in from. We always love to see where folks are dialing in from. We generally got people from, pretty much all over the world. I know we got Australia is in the house. We got New Zealand. Looks like we have some folks from Louisiana, from Canada, Perth, Western Australia. So really from all over the world. And, tonight's call is very special for me because I fell in love with Steve Scott a few years ago and what he's been doing with the technology in the glutathione space. Love glutathione, was a very strong proponent for it. Just wasn't quite excited about the different delivery methods until I met Neumi and Stephen K. Scott and what they're doing. So enough of that. Let me bring Steve on because he's going to take it from here. Steve, go ahead and unmute your line, my friend.
There we go. There we go.
Take it away, brother.
I'm unmuted. Hello, everybody. It's good to see the people that are here. It looks like we've got all people that have been on this call many times. Yeah, I think I'll look and see if I see any new faces. I see a few names I don't recognize. I just got back from, we were on the European Diamond Cruise, and a lot of neat things happened. But one thing that happened that was real interesting was that we ended up doing an impromptu opportunity meeting in Spain. I always have a mental block against the city in Spain. Starts with the B, not, what is it? Keith, any idea?
Barcelona.
Barcelona. Oh, and I even thought, okay, think bar and then a salon, like a hair
Salon.
salon. And but I've had a mental block against that city my whole life, no matter how I do it.
Well, thanks to Jacqueline Jimmel, she kind of give me a clue. She
Okay.
typed.
Thank you, Jackie. And one neat thing that happened, we had an impromptu opportunity meeting, and they filled the room. It was probably about 80 people. And it really went well. But afterwards, we went to lunch with everybody. And at lunch, I sat next to a molecular scientist on my left, and directly across from me from this amazing cardiologist. And he's amazing, first of all, because he's my age, so he's made it to 77. Secondly, he was a cardiologist in his early life. And what cardiologists do is to diagnose and treat people with heart disease, heart disorders, diabetes, and so on. And but at one point, he decided he'd rather do something more meaningful and reach more people. So he got a couple PhDs and added those to his name in molecular biology and molecular chemistry, and then a second one in cardiology. So he has had two PhDs, and he ends up setting up two testing labs across town from each other, one that focuses on the cardiology side research, and the other that focuses on research and experimentation and so on the molecular side. So what was amazing about that to me was he had not been involved that long, and so he's getting to know more about glutathione. Pretty much he was up to speed, I think, on glutathione, but on our delivery system, he was not. And so sitting directly across from him, I had a chance to tell him about how novel our delivery technology is and what it means. And he got so excited that he's going to start tracking. I'm going to send him some product, but he already has some product, but I'm going to send him a more advanced iteration that we have for the medical side. And he will keep all data on heart patients, on patients that he's studying from a molecular point of view. And he said, I'll have really build your database because I do a lot of patients every month, and I will keep analytics. Well, the other scientist, this younger guy, I think he's like 42 or 44, and he said, I'll be the coordinator. So since he writes in Spanish, I'll take everything he writes on the analysis side, translate it into English, send it to you. Then everything that you want or question, I'll be the go-between, and we'll keep great records that way. So we're going to set that up. So that's adding to our list of scientists that are studying all the different things we do. We have our dear friend Sotiris Nikolopoulos in Greece, who is the genetic specialist and molecular specialist. Then we have Gareth Morris Swift, who he's quite an amazing man. He was a liver surgeon at Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the very top heart cardiovascular centers in the United States. And but he was on the liver side, and then he decided instead of just always cutting, he wanted to really do research and study therapeutics, what he can do to make sick people better, how he can help people prevent liver disease, and so on. And so he added 3 PhDs to his name, and he is a brilliant scientist. So he's working with us now. And we're all seeing things nobody else has ever seen before. The geneticist is seeing it. The liver doctor, Morris, and Phoebe, he practices both in the UK and the United States. And so he is Gareth Morris Swift, I think. Sif or Swift, but Gareth. And he is really something. And now I've got this newest doctor in Spain, in Barcelona. And it's just, we keep expanding our ability to get more knowledge about what we do. Why do we need that? Because we do so much. Glutathione, if there is anybody new on this call, is the most studied molecule in medicinal science. Right now, there are over 197,000 published studies cataloged in PubMed, the U.S. Library of Medical Science. Now, that's more than any other molecule. And to put it in perspective, vitamin C, which used to be the most studied molecule, has about 79,000. Last I looked, 79,000 studies in PubMed. And why is that important? Because science, unlike medical doctors, they tend to get grants to study things that can make a big difference in the future. And science, it really leads medicine by at least 10 to 15 years. So the scientists discover something, this works, this doesn't, this has terrible side effects, this doesn't. And they distill all that. And then it goes, believe it or not, pharmaceutical companies will pick the ones they're interested in, and then they'll turn it into a drug. And after about 10 or 15 years, it makes it into practice, into medical practice. But if you want to know where the big discoveries are and what people are excited about, look at how many studies are currently going on. Typically, they add about 1,000 new glutathione studies every couple months, 2 to 3 months. And so it turns out, in fact, my son Sean was in here earlier today. Do I have that paper? He's doing a paper right now. It's quite exciting. But he points to a study that Keith will put in our chat. If you don't have it, you should download it. Keith, you want to take that GSH study? Now, this is a study that was done in 2009. It was published in 2009 in the Journal of Biochemistry, either that or Journal of Cellular Chemistry. But it was titled The Dysregulation of Glutathione and Human Disease. Now, what does dysregulation mean? It means the declining rate, the rate of decline, or the declining of glutathione levels in a person. So every year or every decade, our glutathione levels decline by 8 to 15%. And that's with populations over the age of 20. So if you're 30, you have 10% to 15% less glutathione than you had at the age of 20. Now, why is that significant? Because glutathione is at the core of just about every system that our body functions with. The immune system, the detoxification, the antioxidant system, the cardiovascular system in a lot of ways. And so this particular study that Keith is putting up in the chat links declining glutathione levels to the onset and progression of, in that study, probably 30 disease classes. It includes cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, kidney disease, liver disease, pulmonary diseases, COPD, asthma, on and on. It tracks it. And at the end of the study, it says glutathione is likely in a causal relationship. In other words, it causes with every major disease. not just the ones we've cited. And what's unique about this study is that it had 300 citations that were published at the end of the article. That's about, I think it's like 16 pages. They actually had cited how many? 600 studies to come to the conclusions they did, but the publisher didn't have enough room to list all 600. So the publisher listed 300 of those studies. So all that to say, glutathione is so critically important. There are a lot of things about glutathione that as it goes down, we physically experience. And there are other things that we really don't know it's caused until it's too late. For example, let's take heart disease. Cardiovascular disease, most heart attacks, well, 72% of the heart attacks in the United States are caused by what's referred to as vulnerable plaque or soft plaque. Now, when we think about plaque, if this is a cross-section of a blood vessel, when we think about plaque, we think about calcified plaque that actually is in the vessel. So, okay, and it ends up causing a blockage, and that blockage causes a heart attack. Now, that's 8% of the heart attacks in the United States. The much bigger cause is called vulnerable plaque, and it hides, let's see if I can do it. It hides in the lining of the artery and the vessels. It doesn't show inside the vessel. It hides in the lining. It's created by inflammation, and inflammation causes it to form and increase. So it gets bigger and bigger, and it ends up causing a little pimple, what we would look, if we wanted to compare it, like a pimple-like thing that sticks out into the vessel. And then when that ruptures, all of this soft plaque, vulnerable plaque, jelly plaque, escapes and causes an instant heart attack. That's 72%. That's why so many people have heart attacks out of the blue. They showed no sign that they were having problems. And then one day, all of a sudden, ooh, their chest hurts, and they try to breathe, and their chest is too tight to breathe, and they drop over with a heart attack. That's from vulnerable plaque. And but what drives vulnerable plaque, its onset and its progression, is inflammation, which is why cardiologists look at inflammation markers like C-reactive protein, the homocysteine levels. There's one they look at, they're starting to look at, but there's nothing they can do to lower it. It's called lipoprotein little a, LP little a. LP little a, when that's present at elevated levels, the risk of a heart attack increases by 300%. Once again, LP little a is driven by inflammation. Now, what does glutathione do? Glutathione, what causes inflammation is oxidative stress, primarily. Oxidative stress and the pro-inflammatory genes. Our genetic makeup includes a number of pro-inflammatory genes that if they overexpress create a great deal of inflammation. So if a person is in an highly inflamed state with something in their gut like ulcerative colitis or irritated bowel syndrome or even Crohn's disease, that irritation comes from the inflammation that the disease state contributes to, and until the inflammation is so bad it creates either the disease or the pain or the symptoms of the disease. Well, it turns out glutathione is designed to deal directly with inflammation in several ways. Number one, it's the primary reducing agent of oxidative stress. That's what creates it on the level that we experience. You know, kind of like if you're in a boat and all of a sudden you're confronted by giant waves. What's causing the giant waves? Okay, those giant waves might be the inflammation we deal with, but there's an underneath that something's happening that's causing that. And that would be at our genetic level. So we have, for example, tumor necrosis factor alpha is a gene, a pro-inflammatory gene. Interleukin 1, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, interleukin 12B, they're all pro-inflammatory genes. Their overexpression causes a lot of inflammation. There's 9 particular pro-inflammatory genes that produce most of the inflammation that we experience. And so Dr. Nikolopoulos, he looks beneath the surface and looks at those overexpressing genes and what things influence those genes. And it turns out if you were to do a study, you would find there's a lot of studies that say glutathione is designed to reduce the overexpression of those genes. And glutathione, of course, we know of its work with oxidative stress. So let's talk about that for a minute. What happens with oxidative stress? Well, every cell in our body is attacked by at least 20,000 free radicals a day. So Keith is going to pull up a slide that shows 20,000, and most of you have seen these slides, but we'll show it anyway, in case there's anybody new on this call. So this is, here we go, 20,000 people in an arena to watch the Chicago Bulls basketball team. And if you were on the center court there, down on the floor, and you were the only one down there, and all 20,000 of these people decided to take you out, they're going to try to get in and land a punch. It's you against 20,000 people. That's what every cell in your body goes through every single day. And you have 37 trillion cells that are fighting. Each cell is fighting 20,000, roughly 20,000 free radicals per day. Those free radicals have different sources. Now, if a cell lives for 5 days, here's the number of free radicals that are going to end up attacking it during that 5-day period. Now, that's 100,000. So just imagine you against 100,000. That's what every cell in your body goes through every 5 days. And most of that is produced just in the metabolic process. The metabolic process is the functioning of the cell. You have little motors in the cell called mitochondria. The mitochondria are like little motors. They produce their own fuel. That fuel is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. And the production of that fuel, once it's produced, then the mitochondria consume that fuel for energy. Well, when you consume fuel, you always have a little bit of waste. That waste creates what we call oxidative stress. Now, oxidative stress is a very bad thing because, 1, it creates inflammation in the cell. 2, it accelerates the aging of the cell. So we take the various organs. You've got the heart, liver, kidneys, your skin is your largest organ. Well, do you want all of those organs to age more rapidly, faster, or do you want them to age more slowly? We all want them to age more slowly. Nobody wants a brain that ages too quickly, or a heart, or a liver, or a kidney, or skin. And but how fast it ages is very, very dependent on oxidative stress. Okay, so the oxidative stress is created by the free radicals that are created in the metabolic process. But there's also other sources of free radicals, the air we breathe, the water we drink, even the things we touch. This keyboard doesn't get hot. Why? There's electricity flowing through it. Why doesn't it heat up? Because it is coated with a very toxic chemical that absorbs and disperses the heat. That chemical, when they tested 2,000 umbilical cords to see how many of 217 chemicals were getting into the fetus from the mother, they discovered that every one of those mothers had all 217 industrial chemicals, and the umbilical cords had all 217, including the chemical that coats the circuit board. Now, that chemical isn't in the air we breathe. Its only application is as a coolant in electric circuit boards. That's it. So from touching those circuit boards, that chemical is emanating and coming into our body through our touch. That's how, what's the right word, aggressive these chemicals are. So everybody on this call has at least 270 or 217 chemicals. If the CDC tested for 500, they'd probably find all 500. There's about 80,000 chemicals, industrial chemicals in our environment, 80,000. So those chemicals create free radicals. They have different sources. Some are sourced from the oxygen in our body, most of them actually. Some are sourced from the hydrogen in our body, and some are sourced from the nitrogen. Now, what do free radicals do? Free radicals steal an electron from the cell. And when it does that, that's what creates the oxidative stress. The way antioxidants work is they donate an electron to the free radical. And when they make that donation, it sequesters or neutralizes, captures the free radical. And if it wasn't for our antioxidants, we'd all die very quickly. But thankfully, God built us in a way to where our body makes some antioxidants. For example, the body makes CoQ10, superoxide dismutase, catalase, glutathione. And the way it makes glutathione, I'm sorry, my phone rang. Okay, I'm got ADD, so complete distraction from a friend of mine that's on the road. So I hope he hasn't crashed. He's like me, he's very ADD. So there's a spectrum of free radicals. Like I said, some are oxygen-based, some hydrogen-based, some nitrogen-based. And they all need to be countered with antioxidants. Problem is, our body doesn't have enough antioxidants. Now, all antioxidants except glutathione are monofocused. So vitamin C can take out that type of free radical, but it leaves all these other guys. Vitamin E might take out that one, CoQ10, superoxide dismutase, catalase. Glutathione is called the master antioxidant for a number of reasons. One is it's the only antioxidant that can sequester and neutralize all types of free radicals, regardless of their source structure or composition. The other reason it's called the master antioxidant is because it's the most prevalent in the body. Every cell in your body manufactures glutathione. So you have 37 trillion glutathione factories in your body right now. Problem is, the glutathione they make is quickly used up. So they're in production all 3 shifts. They're in production 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they still can't produce enough to handle all the free radicals that confront the cells. So we need to supplement. So a lot of people will take vitamin C, which is a good antioxidant, but once again, it's monofocused. It can only take out one type, can't take out the others. Vitamin E, same thing. Vitamin A, same thing. CoQ10, superoxidase. You can buy those supplements on market. They're all pretty good. But once again, they're monofocused. They cannot do what glutathione. Now remember, glutathione performs 400 functions, not just the antioxidant function. It is the detoxifier of the cell. Why is that important? Because as long as the integrity of the mitochondrial DNA is maintained and prolonged, the cell can't mutate. But when the mitochondrial is broken, the cell can mutate and multiply. Of course, that's cancer. What breaks the mitochondrial DNA primarily is the chemical load in the cell. Secondarily, are certain free radicals attack the mitochondrial DNA. Peroxynitrite is one that attacks it. Peroxynitrite is created when the microwaves from a 5G tower enter your body and react with the nitrogen in your body, and it produces peroxynitrite. Peroxynitrite lives 1 billion times longer than any oxygen-based free radical. It lives so long it can actually transfer from one cell to the other, which is novel. And it attacks, one of the things it does, it attacks the mitochondrial DNA. So glutathione, of course, it turns out is the only antioxidant that can neutralize peroxynitrite and help protect the mitochondrial DNA from that. But glutathione is the primary detoxifier of the cell. It has a real sticky sulfhydryl molecule that sticks to the chemical and then ushers it out of the cell ultimately. No other antioxidant has that ability. Glutathione is, is the primary protector of the immune cells, of the immune system. We learned in the pandemic how important our immune system is. People with robust immune systems may have gotten sick, but they didn't die. On the other hand, people with weaker immune systems did die by the millions. And it turns out that glutathione, as the sole protector of the immune cells, people that have low glutathione levels, their T cells in response to the viral insult would reproduce slowly while the COVID virus was reproducing rapidly. And consequently, that rapid reproduction of COVID viruses ended up creating tremendous amount of inflammation in the lungs called the cytokine storm, where there's just this very rapid inflaming of the lining of the lungs, and that became host to pneumonia, and that's what killed most people. People with high glutathione levels, by and large, didn't die during the pandemic. You say, what about people with cofactors? Well, if they have cofactors, their glutathione levels are lower. The cofactors themselves, like obesity, disease states like diabetes, high blood pressure, any kind of pulmonary disease, different liver disease, kidney disease, all of those things are cofactors that lower the levels of glutathione. How does that happen? Because glutathione is used to mitigate much of the causes of those diseases, most of the causes are the inflammation. Yes, there's other things that are causal in nature, but inflammation exacerbates any disease state. And, my best friend recently had double pneumonia. And the amount of inflammation in his lungs was terrible. Of course, they put him on steroids to try to reduce the inflammatory response and the inflammatory load, but that helped. He's okay now. He's the one that's driving across the country, and he called while I was talking. Let's see. Just want to let you know we just got to Cheyenne. Okay, good. So he's made it to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and he's quite a neat guy. We've been best friends since 1969. He's the hometown hero of a little place called Oil City, Pennsylvania. And every year they have Jim Shaughnessy Day, big parade and everything. He was their football All-American, and so he goes back for that. Plus he's having his class's 60th reunion. So he's on his way driving from Utah to Oil City, Pennsylvania. So glutathione is so critical. Much of what it does, the vast majority of what it does quietly. You do not feel glutathione protecting your mitochondrial DNA. But if it fails to protect the mitochondrial DNA and a doctor says, I've got bad news, you've got cancer, then you feel it. Then you experience it because cancer is progressive in nature. It gets worse and worse. And oftentimes, I remember my best friend in life one of my best friends was an actor in Hollywood named Michael Landon. And he was famous for the show Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, and Highway to Heaven. And Michael was diagnosed in 1991, April of 91, with pancreatic liver cancer. And then he died April 7th. He didn't even get 90 days once he was diagnosed. And I asked an oncologist, I said, how come it takes him so fast? Pancreatic is so fast. And he says, well, because the first 12 years, it's not symptomatic. It's just growing and growing and growing, and it's a jelly-like substance, so it can't be seen in an ultrasound necessarily. And he says you don't have any symptoms until it's in the final phase, the end phase, not even phase 4, it's the end phase, and all of a sudden it's symptomatic. Well, that whole time prior to that, becoming symptomatic, it is developing and you don't feel it, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. Same thing with the positive things of glutathione, all the protection it's giving, the detoxification, the protection of the immune system, and so on. That goes on around the clock, even while you're sleeping. So glutathione is your number one advocate. It is what's protecting you day and night. Now, there are some things that you can physically experience on the positive side with glutathione. Typically, more energy, not like an energy shot that comes and goes, but it's just kind of like a stealth energy. It just gives you a floor of energy that doesn't go away. And if it goes away on our product, you take a little bit more and you're fine. But mental focus, physical, if Phoebe stops taking our product, she experiences some back pain. She had her back broken when she was 16 years old. She was riding a horse and the horse fell and rolled on her and broke her back. And so it's now when the inflammation is minimized, and glutathione helps minimize the oxidative stress that can cause the inflammation, then she doesn't have to suffer with that pain. So I was with another guy today that's an athlete, and same thing with him. I said, you take it before your workout, and after your workout, you're going to recover faster and you're going to perform better. And we've had athletes break world records on our product that had no hope of breaking world records prior to that at the age and position they were in. And so glutathione adds to a very positive note to just about everything you do. I couldn't get through my day without it. I'm 77 and my days are long. They're filled. I've got 17 grandkids. Tonight I've got 2 big dogs because I've got my 90-pound puppy, which is a Newfoundland, and her best friend is one of my son's golden retrievers. So that golden retriever is with us today, tomorrow, Saturday, and then gets picked up on Sunday. So I need energy. When you're policing 2 energetic dogs, that takes more effort than policing 1. And so when I get home, that's one reason I'm working from the office, is so they don't interfere with my phone call. Glutathione is critical to every aspect of your life, cardiovascular health. I never stopped studying it. Right now, I'm doing a study on a particular, I've been asked to write a paper for one of our doctors on why there's a potential to help a particular disease state with a different iteration of our product that's not on the market. And it all goes back to inflammation. Inflammation is a huge component of every disease state. And it's not just the inflammation you feel or see, it's the inflammation that causes the buildup of plaque in the arteries, that causes certain receptacles to malfunction, that can relate to diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. Liver disease accelerates at a much faster pace when there's significant inflammation. So I'm writing a paper on it, and it's pretty easy. I mean, all I have to do is research it. Research comes easy to me. So, but glutathione, people say, well, why don't we? I just saw some new glutathione pills on the market, and it's selling for a bottle for a month's supply is selling for $50. And they advertise great big, liposomal glutathione. And if I was liposomal glutathione, I would say glutathione, because liposomal isn't something to advertise. I'll tell you why. We're going to close it up in just a minute. But every cell in your body, they average 10 nanometers in diameter. To put that in perspective, one strand of your hair is 80,000 nanometers. This typing paper is, let's see if we can see the thickness there, is 100,000 nanometers thick. So every cell in your body, your cells average 100 nanometers in diameter, which is very, very tiny. And the pores in those cells are only 10 nanometers. Well, you take a glutathione molecule, it's about 1.2 to 1.4 nanometers in diameter. So it easily can enter the pore. But if you wrap it in a liposome, which is a fat, it goes from this tiny size to that size, and it can no longer fit in that pore. It lays on top of the cell. And then you're relying on what's called forced diffusion, pressures and forces outside of that cell, pushing some of that into the cellular wall, and then hoping that some of that is in the wall will absorb into the cytoplasm in the cell, and maybe some of it may ultimately make it to the nucleus of the cell. Very inefficient and modestly effective, to say the most. It's like riding a bicycle uphill in high gear. You'll pedal real fast, you'll go real slow, and you may not make it to the top. That's inefficiency. Liposomal glutathione is highly inefficient. They put the liposome around it to protect it through the gut because glutathione is so fragile that when it hits the gut, the stomach acid breaks it apart and it can't enter the cell. So to keep that from happening, they wrap a liposome around it. Now, what do? We take that same glutathione molecule and cysteine molecule, and instead of wrapping it in a fat, we wrap it in water molecules. Now, when you do that, the bad news is you're not going to get it through the stomach. The stomach acid will eat right through the water and break the molecule. The good news is you're so tiny that you don't need to get through the stomach. You can absorb through the mucosa, the mucous membranes inside your cheeks. You can absorb into the bloodstream there. The mucosa in the venous cavity under your tongue, and the mucosa that lines your esophagus. All those points, product can absorb into the bloodstream. Once in the bloodstream, because of the structure of our encapsulation as well as the size of the molecule, we exit the bloodstream very quickly into one pass of circulation and we're out of the bloodstream. So it's a very fast response. It's far more efficient. It relies on what's called passive diffusion. Forced diffusion tries to force it into a cellular membrane. Passive is it's small enough to get right into the pore and get into the cytoplasm. Once it's there, it gets utilized. Now, we've done something that'll be in your product very, very soon. I think we start shipping here in the United States next week. And so you'll be getting our product with an improved ratio because we not only put glutathione into the product, we also take one of its amino acids, cysteine, and we've changed the ratio to raise the level of cysteine. And when you change that ratio, some amazing things happen. Number one, the cysteine helps the cell produce more of its own glutathione. Number two, the extra cysteine allows our glutathione to recycle. Cysteine is the recycling agent of glutathione. So the people that we tested this with have reported to us that if they were taking 2 or 3 servings of our previous NutraSwish, now 1 serving gets them through the day. So that's a big deal. Keith has tried it, and one of the feedback you gave me, go ahead and unmute, Keith, and tell what you've experienced with the revised formula.
The blue bottle, right?
Blue
Yeah.
bottle.
You feel a little bit energized a little longer, like you can go longer in between servings before you feel like you might be running a little low in the tank. And so I was really excited about that. And that means that you can get more done throughout the day. For me, it helped keep me more focused, more stamina, more endurance, that type of stuff. Especially, after doing any type of workout, walks or body weight exercise type stuff. It's really, to me, it's a whole lot better, and we're going to get some really, really exciting results for a lot of people.
And then down the road, we're working on another iteration that is part of your future, but it's a little more distant. It's probably first or second quarter of next year. And that one is we found a way to increase the amount of glutathione and cysteine in the water envelopes. And that's a huge breakthrough. That one may be a little bit more expensive, not a lot, but a little bit more. It certainly costs us more to manufacture it, so we'll see. But in the meantime, this one that we're getting out in the next couple months domestically and I believe internationally. That's the one where we've changed the ratio and we're seeing a significantly, a noticeably higher life. Now, we have said in the past that we were increasing the half-life of glutathione. I want to correct that. That's not quite true. What we're doing is we're giving the cell a way to produce actually more glutathione by twofold. So it's about triple as much glutathione as you would get out of our standard NutraSwish because of the recycling of the cysteine recycling glutathione plus cysteine being used to give the cell what it needs to make more. Cysteine is the rate limiting amino acid of glutathione production in the cell. In other words, glutathione is made up of cysteine, glycine, and glutamic acid. Glutamic acid and glycine, you have all you need. Cysteine is another story. That's in shorter supply. Well, now we're giving a higher level of cysteine, so that's going to increase the supply in the cell for the cell to make more of its own. Plus, cysteine can be utilized then also to recycle the glutathione as it's used. In other words, antioxidants donate that electron. Now they're useless. They're minus that electron. Well, cysteine can put another free electron back into glutathione. That's how it recycles it. So all that's coming down the pike. We knew when well, here, we're running out of time. I apologize for that. We'll go ahead and plan on next Thursday also. But let's just real quick rush to some before and afters. We found out through an accident, one of our athletes who was breaking all their personal records in a race, 100-mile bike race, crashed. And when they went end over end, hit the pavement so hard it broke their helmet, knocked them out. They were hospitalized, and their face had terrible abrasions and road rash and so on, hit the pavement at about 23 miles an hour. And when she got home from the hospital after 3 days in the hospital, she poured some glutathione, some of our product on a cotton pad, and then she put it on the affected areas of her face. And what should have taken 5 weeks to clear took only 5 days. And when we saw that, we decided to put it in spray bottles, send it out and see if it made a difference cosmetically to people's appearance. That's back in 2018. And so let's go ahead and bring up our first before and after, Keith, and then we'll rush through these and then we're done. And I apologize for the time tonight. So this was the very first one to come back. And this is Sherry Warner. She was 58 at the time. And that was after 7 weeks of spraying her face 5 times a day. It got much brighter, tighter. And my former formulator, I've owned 5 cosmetic companies with my partners, and our head formulator became the head formulator for the company that created Botox. And when he saw this picture, he said, "Steve, she's had a facelift. There's no topical product in the world that can do that. Botox can't even do it." And I said, "John, no, you're wrong. She has never had a needle, a scalpel, even a laser touch her face. She is a farmer, and she owns a farm and works a farm." And he said, "Well, then that's the most amazing skincare product I've ever seen." I agreed. Okay, that was my hands. I was only 71 at the time. I sprayed my right hand about 4 times a day for 12 weeks, didn't spray the left hand. You can see the difference. This is an 84-year-old. That was 4 weeks. We asked her how often she sprayed. She said she had bottles all over the house. Anytime she passed one, she would spray her face and neck. And look at the difference. Tighter, brighter, smoother. This is another 84-year-old. Her daughter started our Neumi family in Greece. And this lady said, "Hey, I used to have old lady legs. Now I have younger legs and young lady legs." And boy, what a difference. Next. Okay, this is 8 days, but she's young. but she was supposed to do it for 8 weeks, and she calls us after 8 days and says, "What happened to my pores? Look how much smoother, brighter, tighter my skin is. Steve, nothing." She owns a skincare salon in Miami, Florida. She said, "Nothing on the market does this. Look how it opened up my eyes." This is a 60-year-old. That was a nice result for 30 days, but look what happened after 6 months. That's when Erin and I met her. She came into the office. She's 60 years old. We thought she was in her early 40s. Next. He's 67. Once again, even with men, tighter, brighter, smoother. And now that's, to me, it goes from what looks like a mugshot to a normal person. Next. Okay, same thing, younger person, but look how even her skin tone is. And after only 10 days. Next. She is the first ladies that we showed you, her mother, and that was after 3 weeks. And pretty amazing. Next. This lady's 60, in her mid-60s. She was a smoker. Look at her neck and look above her mouth. All that damage, skin damage, has been mediated, and look how good it looks. Next. Okay, that was only 6 days. That one's pretty remarkable. Next. This was 4 weeks. She's in Nigeria. Her daughter's a doctor and gave her the product. And look at the result. I mean, she's in her 80s, by the way. This guy we've only got one more to look at after him. He's 94. And he said, "I love the new look, but more important than the new look is I feel like the guy on the right instead of the guy on the left." And he said, "That's what I love most about this product." And last but not least, we had a chance to meet her in Hungary. I asked her how often she sprayed. That was after 7 weeks. And she said, "I did what you said the first lady did. I sprayed 5 times a day for 7 weeks." Well, look at her. I mean, my gosh, honestly, 10 years younger, 20 years younger. Now, the important thing of that is not only to show that we have the world's best skincare, but more important is the fact that the biochemical activity of glutathione that's causing all that change is doing the same thing for your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your muscles, your joints. All of them are experiencing that biochemical change of reduced oxidative stress. Oxidative stress and the inflammation it produces is our mortal enemy, and nothing deals with oxidative stress like glutathione does. So that's where we're at. We'll, right now, unless you're notified otherwise, or we post on the website, we're planning on next Thursday. And let's see if we can get some new people, more new people on. This is a call that I always enjoy. And if it's just us chickens, then we'll keep having fun. Thank you for joining us. And Keith, thank you for taking Michael's place. Michael is, I guess, traveling. And Keith helps me on my European call every Wednesday. So thanks for doing double duty this week, Keith. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Steve.
And Phoebe, thank you as always. Jackie, it's good seeing you and all of you, Norma, Florence. And it's just what a Neumi family we have. Brenda Marks, I see you there. Camille Wright, I'm glad you're here. And we're just blessed. We're highly blessed. There's Jeannie. Jeannie, I saw what did I see? Oh, you're doing a book club on Simple Steps to Impossible Dreams. That's cool. That was my second book, and you'll like it. It gets into the personality test in one chapter, so that'll be fun. Okay, folks, we'll see you next time. Lord bless you all. He loves you more than you love yourself. So
thanks again, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thank
so everyone, we will be back on Neumi.tv next Tuesday night for the live global opportunity presentation. So whatever you do over the weekend, gather your team members, gather your prospects, and direct them over into that call because it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. But y'all, till then, have a great weekend. Good morning. Good afternoon.